Welcome to Thoughts and Theories. There comes a moment in almost every thinking person's life when a quiet realization hits. None of this really makes sense. You wake up, work, eat, scroll through your phone, maybe laugh, maybe cry, then sleep, and tomorrow you do it again. You try to find meaning in relationships, in achievements, in religion, in pleasure, but the question never goes away. Why? Why all this effort, if the end is the same for everyone? Death, silence, nothingness? This question, this confrontation between our desire for meaning and the world's refusal to give it, is what Albert Camus called the absurd. Camus wasn't trying to be dark or nihilistic. He wasn't saying that life is worthless. What he meant was that human beings have a deep, almost instinctive need for meaning. We want our lives to make sense, to fit into some larger story, but the universe doesn't respond. It stays silent. We ask, "Why am I here?" And the universe gives no answer. That silence, that tension, is the absurd. For Camus, this wasn't just an idea in a philosophy textbook. He felt it everywhere. In war, in suffering, in the everyday boredom of human existence. He lived through World War II, saw death on a massive scale, and watched people justify murder and cruelty with ideologies claiming to hold ultimate truth. He saw how dangerous it was when people couldn't live with the absurd, when they couldn't accept that life might not have an ultimate purpose. So, what do we do about it? There are, Camus said, 3 possible responses. The first is suicide, the ultimate refusal to face the absurd. If life has no meaning, some think, why go on living? But for Camus, that's a mistake. Suicide doesn't solve the problem. It simply removes the person asking the question. It's like tearing up the test because you can't find the answer. To Camus, that's not rebellion. That's surrender. The second response is what he called philosophical suicide, turning to religion, ideology, or metaphysical beliefs to escape the absurd. Instead of accepting that the universe might not make sense, people create meaning systems to fill the silence. They say, God has a plan, or history has a purpose, or science will explain everything. For Camus, these are comforting illusions. They give order, but they do it by lying to ourselves. They pretend that the world makes sense when it doesn't. That leaves the third option: revolt. To live with the absurd, to stare directly into the meaninglessness and still say, "Yes, I will live." Camus calls this the only honest response. Imagine Sisyphus, the ancient Greek figure condemned by the gods to push a heavy boulder up a hill for eternity, only for it to roll back down every time. That's the image Camus used to describe human life. We push the stone every day. We struggle, we hope, we fail, we start again. The stone rolls down, and we push it again. Most people look at Sisyphus and see punishment, despair, futility. Camus looks at him and says, "We must imagine Sisyphus happy, because the moment Sisyphus becomes aware of his situation and still continues, he becomes free. The gods can control his punishment, but they can't control his mind. His rebellion is that he keeps pushing, knowing there is no ultimate goal. This is the essence of Camus' idea. To live without appeal. To stop waiting for meaning to be handed to us from somewhere else. To stop looking for a grand design and instead create our own way of living. Fully, consciously, without illusions. Camus wasn't saying that nothing matters. He was saying that we must make things matter. If the universe doesn't care, then we are free to decide what does. It's not about finding meaning in the universe. It's about giving meaning to the universe through how we live. Think about art, love, friendship, laughter. They don't fix the absurd. They don't explain existence, but they make existence richer. When you love someone, when you write, when you enjoy a simple meal, when you laugh, those are acts of rebellion against the absurdity of life. You know none of it lasts, and yet you do it anyway. That, for Camus, is the triumph of being human. In modern life, this message hits even harder. We live in a time where people are constantly searching for meaning through success, productivity, fame, or wealth. We scroll endlessly, trying to feel connected, trying to fill that same void. But deep down, the absurd remains. No number of likes, no amount of money, no religion or political ideology can erase it. So maybe the question isn't, what is the meaning of life? But, how do I live knowing it has none? Camus' answer was clear. Live as if life itself is enough. Don't hope for eternity. Don't look for cosmic purpose. Find joy in the act of living, in the struggle itself. He once wrote, "The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart." That's his entire philosophy condensed in a single line. It's a difficult idea to accept because it removes all the comforting stories. There is no divine plan, no final justice, no ultimate reward, but it also removes fear. When you stop expecting life to provide meaning, you stop being disappointed. You start living freely, honestly, without pretending there's a hidden purpose. Look at people who seem genuinely at peace with life. They don't necessarily have more. They just don't demand that life be something other than what it is. They find satisfaction in the present. That's what Camus meant by revolt, saying yes to life, even when life says nothing back. Camus himself lived this philosophy. He wasn't a detached academic. He played soccer, loved the sea, smoked too much, laughed often, and wrote passionately. He won the Nobel Prize in Literature at just 44. He lived with intensity, knowing that meaning was something he had to create, not discover. Ironically, he died young, in a car crash, a sudden, absurd death that seemed to echo his own philosophy. Yet what remained was not despair, but a legacy of courage, the courage to live without illusions. We can see echoes of his thought in everyday life. When a scientist dedicates years to research knowing there may be no ultimate answer, that is a form of revolt. When an artist paints knowing their work might never be recognized, that's revolt. When you wake up and keep living fully despite the chaos and uncertainty, that's revolt too. Camus teaches that the absurd doesn't make life meaningless. It makes it raw and real. It strips away false promises and forces us to confront life as it truly is. And once we do, we can finally live authentically. Not chasing eternal answers, but embracing the fleeting moments that make up existence. It's easy to mistake this view for pessimism, but it is actually a radical form of optimism. Not the blind hope that everything will turn out fine, but the strength to keep going even when it won't. It's the courage to look at the darkness and still choose light. So how do we live when life has no meaning? By loving anyway. By creating anyway. By laughing, thinking, helping, exploring anyway. By pushing the boulder again and again, with awareness, with defiance, with a quiet smile. Camus reminds us that life's beauty lies in its impermanence. That joy means something precisely because it fades. That meaning is something we give, not something we find. So maybe the point isn't to escape the absurd, but to live in it, dance with it, and turn it into something beautiful. Because in the end, meaning isn't out there waiting for us. It's right here, in the act of living itself.